Sorry, you have to hear my voice more.
They can't get enough. So I want you to take me back, Jon, and tell me about the moment you realized you wanted to direct movies and how old you were.
Ooh, I was young. I mean, I used to draw a lot, and I grew up in a Chinese restaurant. My parents opened this restaurant, so I would do my homework at the bar. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and when you're the youngest of 5 kids, you gotta fight for your food. So I would just draw all the time, and that was how I started. And then I got a Super 8 camera, and I would do little animated movies with my toys. And then my mom made me carry the video camera on these family vacations, and that's where I got like the viewfinder in my eye, and I got to observe things, and I got to capture it in these little bottles. And one day I got this little mixer from Sharp Image, which was this catalog that had like futuristic things. It's basically like Instagram now, but back then it was in paper form. And you never knew if it was good quality or bad quality, but I got a mixer. You could put your CD player in it, your VCR in it, and I cut together this video of my family and I showed them. And my parents started to cry watching it. And it was like that. I felt that. I was like, this is a thing that I didn't know how to do before, but something about putting pictures and music and editing it together gave me a power that I never thought. And I was like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life.
And you did, so far.
I did. I did wedding videos and bar mitzvahs for a long time. I learned a lot during that time.
Well, that's my question, because I know you went to school for this, and then when you made your feature directorial debut with Step Up 2,
yeah.
But what was it like getting from school to making a big feature?
So I went to USC Film School, and I, that in myself was like, oh yes, we made it to USC Film School, but that's just the beginning. Then you see, oh my gosh, there's so many talented people here, and you're fighting for very few slots, and you're making your movies, and everyone's like just smarter and more creative, and all those things. I did a short that got people's attention, that got me into the business, so I was very lucky in the beginning. It's like I won the lottery. The right people saw my short, and I made the right short, whatever reason. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And then you get in, and I was meeting all around town, and so I didn't have to PA, I didn't have to do all that stuff. So it was definitely like lightning in a bottle moment. But then, actually making a movie is very different, because I then had to sit there, and every year they'd be like, oh no, we're making your movie next year. And at the same time, I'm like, there's articles being written about me. Oh, who's this new director? I'm going to school to speak to the students again. I'm 23 years old. And then the next year goes by, and they're like, no, don't worry, in 6 months we're gonna make the movie. And then the next year goes by, and 6 months we're gonna make, and my bank account's going lower. And everyone's like, how's that movie coming? And you start to feel shame, because you don't know how long this is gonna go. Year 4, you're like, did I miss it? Year 5, I definitely missed it. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? How do I even? I had Apple stock in 2007, and I was like, I either can sell this Apple stock so I don't have to ask my parents for money, or I can just, and so I sold that Apple stock. It's a story of my life. But it gave me the pride that, okay, I can get to eke out 6 more months, and that's when Step Up to the Streets came to my desk. But at the time, it was, my managers were like, it's a direct-to-DVD. And I was like, I don't do direct-to-DVD. I was discovered by Steven Spielberg. And then my mom was like, when did you become a snob? If you are, this is one of the greatest lessons I've learned, I still keep with me. Like, if you are a storyteller, you are trained not to be a director of movies, you are trained to be a storyteller. That opens up everything. You should be able to pitch, you should be able to convince people of things, you should be able to gather your heads of departments, you should be able to tell a story around a campfire. If you're true, so direct-to-DVD doesn't matter. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make the best damn direct-to-DVD dance movie sequel ever. And then I put the pitch together, I got the job, and then Disney had heard, they had released the first movie theatrically, and they weren't going to do the second one, but they heard I was attached, so Oren Aviv, who was the head of Disney, said, okay, I'll hear what you have. So I'm 2 weeks into being attached to this direct-to-DVD movie. I go in, I pitch my thing, I do a whole show of all these new dance styles and how we're going to do it, and he's like, great, we'll make it into a theatrical feature, but you have to be done in 9 months. And I was like, sure. I had no idea how to do it. And we got done in 9 months, and the movie was a worldwide hit, and that's what started. those 5 years were the toughest of maybe not the toughest in the end, like now there's more sophisticated things that are more tough, but at that point it was really hard to get through.
That's what I was going to ask you, is how do you stay determined when things are not going your way for that long of a period?
In a weird way, that advice that my mom gave me has been really helpful, that you're a storyteller. And if you're a storyteller, then you can tell yourself stories. You can convince yourself of things. And so I started to write an imaginary book about my life in my head. And I was like, oh yeah, one day I'm going to talk about these 5 years and how I conquered them, and that I had to do this and that. And so every time something bad would happen, I'm like, oh, this is a good chapter. This is the chapter where they say no, and I say, hell yes. But honestly, that would get me through moments. And I'd walk into a room and hit all the questions and go, how's the movie? And I'd be like, no, this is where I have to make up the story and just get through it, but it's going to be a great story one day. And so luckily, it sort of did.
Here you are, telling.
Here I am.
Right. So a lot of your films, I think you're such an incredible showman with your movies. You make things that are so entertaining, and they also often have some tie to dance. And why is that? What is your attraction to that showmanship of that?
I don't know. I honestly didn't realize that I was doing so much dance and music in my work until actually getting into this business, and they would only offer me dance and music stuff. When I started making movies, those were my friends. I tap danced growing up, but I was not that great. But me and my sister would do like the talent show. It'd be very embarrassing. My mom would bring out the wooden boards and stuff, and we'd do it. But it wasn't like my passion. It's just those were my friends, and I had this camera. And so what I loved about shooting with my friends is I knew them very well. And they would be like, I'm trying to do this flip, and I wanted to create like this energy. And I'm like, oh, I know the camera. So if I counter your flip, then I can actually help that feeling of energy. And so I would learn what they're trying to do, and I would try to give an equal or contrasting idea of it. The robot would come in and he'd be moving his finger like this. If I started to whip around, I would lose what he's doing. So I learned a lot of the grammar of what they're trying to say, and I just found them so beautiful. And I just found like they're the greatest artists on the planet, that they're giving all this in movement. And so it just was always natural for me, because I felt like I could help in that. How it became a part of the business, I don't actually know, but it did. And then when we talk about musicals, I love musicals. We would go musicals every weekend, go to the show, go to the theater, and so it was always a part of my life. But what I loved about musicals was that it was I think movie musicals are the greatest genre of movies ever. I think people just don't know it yet. But the great ones are great and timeless, like Sound of Music or Cabaret, Sound of Music, and the West Side Story, and they're great because they give a new avenue for the audience to enter the character. It's not again about being bigger, although that's what people think. It's like jazz hands and lights and that. No, it's actually about being deeper. You get to go inside the character, and your language of being able to do that isn't a chorus. It's not entertainment. It is, you get 3 notes that communicate what a paragraph of dialogue can never communicate. You get lyrics that can subvert those notes, or can accent it, or can say something so different, or can hit it right on the nose. So you have words, you have music, and then you have movement on top of that. Oh my gosh, the way you sit in a chair, the way someone moves their foot can say so much about who they are, the way their posture is. And then now they can, because it's dance, because you have permission to go inside, they can actually like do a flip and give you a new way to interpret how they feel. If you're in a movie theater, you have 2 ways to take in a new person's perspective. You have the flashing lights of a scene, you have the dialogue, and you have the sound. And with a musical, you get much more permission to bring the audience by their hand into a character's voice. So I just find that like freeing. I can do it without just cutting. I can do it by having them feel what it feels like to yearn and look off a cliff and imagine you have the possibilities to go meet the wizard, and yet you're not ready to yet. So for me, that's what attracts me to it a lot.
I also think you're really incredible with casting. Like Ariana and Cynthia, of course, but all of your films, Crazy Rich Asians. How do you know when you have the right actor?
I have great casting directors, Bernie Telsey and Tiffany Canfield. They're amazing. And I've worked with many different casting directors over the years. I think I found, after doing Now You See Me Too, where I worked with like Mark Ruffalo and Morgan Freeman and Woody Harrelson, and so many people, what I found in making that movie was they brought so much to those roles that allowed me freedom to then play with them. So I wasn't worried about, is it clear? Are they doing the right intention? Like, they all knew that stuff. So I could actually like step back for the first time in my life and really like play with the form, and also lean into an improv with them as they're acting. And so I found that very powerful. And so from then on I was like, this casting is, and I know they say it in a cliche way, 80% of the job, but it really, really is. They are the ones on the screen, and they are the colors and the brush that the audience are watching. So I think you know, and with Crazy Rich Asians, we had a whole cast of people that maybe the world hadn't known, but they were all ready. Like I was fans of every single one. I think the thing for me is I like to, they have to be emotionally available. They have to be not necessarily about the character, they have to be emotionally available for a camera to enter. Because I think that that's what the audience wants to see. That's what I want to see as a director. And if they're emotionally available, then we can interpret this character many different ways. But they can incorporate a truth, an emotional truth that we can present to the audience that hopefully is so truthful that it's unique to what you're seeing, what you don't ask yourself on a regular day. That you get one step or two steps deeper, because that's our job as artists. And we have the time and we get the space and we're asked to go explore those things that people don't necessarily have time to think about all the time. So to me, that's the number one. And confidence, I find. Confidence of knowing who they are. Not necessarily like who they are forever, but like have confidence of allowing themselves to open up to the exploration of who they are through this character. So I think those are the things that I find.
Can you give me an example of a time that maybe an actor was struggling, you don't have to name names, but and how you as a director helped get them through it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all through Wicked with the girls. I mean, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are so freaking talented. We knew that before, but when they took on these roles, it changed them. I'm not going to say for good, but it changed them. I felt it in the room when Cynthia sang Wizard and I. And she became this little girl, which I'd never seen her look like that before, because she is iconic. She presents herself in such an untouchable way. But when she came in jeans and t-shirt. She sang, and so she already was available in that way. But she was very scared about how we would portray what is essentially a caricature of a witch. The joke is, this is the Wicked Witch. Ha ha, look how crazy she is. She has sticks in her hair and she wears a frock. And Cynthia's like, that is just not how I'm going to present her. That's not how I'm going to care about her. That's not how I would see this character. And she's like, she doesn't talk a lot. I want more lines. I want her to be more involved in this stuff. And so it was a very delicate balance of us finding it together. It wasn't me like, hey, here's how it's going to go. It was, I understand all those concerns, and I actually really love this version of Elphaba you're talking about. Because us, the audience, is going to be in Elphaba's place. And if we play her as a caricature the way, I mean, the show doesn't fully do that, but it sort of is. I mean, it's a vaudevillian show. It's a presentation. So if we're going to get really deep into her, we have to actually go there with her. So every set we'd even go to, we'd have to have a conversation of like, would she have more books? What kind of books would she have? She wouldn't just have one blanket, John. She would bring her own clothes. Like, these were conversations. And then I would help her say, well, you know, the laugh is important. She does have to have a cackle, so let's play with that, even if she felt uncomfortable about doing that. So we were there to support each other. And that's the same with Galinda, with Ariana. She had very specific idea of who Galinda was, because she loves Galinda, but then she started to live Galinda. And at a certain point, I would say, you know, oh, so this thing happens, you're gonna jump over the box because it spills on the floor, and she would show me how Galinda is. And if I needed something different, I was like, oh, but she would like just have fun with it. She would correct me, like, no, she feels very guilty about this thing, so actually do this or that. I would say all the way until the end, we were there for each other as a group, because it's scary to take on a movie and these roles that everybody owns, essentially. And not just the Wicked fans, but the Wizard of Oz fans of the book, of the movies, of any of the movies. So we were just always there with each other to kick the tires and just find the truth in this. And that was, so it was almost every day, to be honest.
And we're going to show a special clip in a minute, but before we do that, what was your relationship with Wicked before you were even in conversations about making a movie?
So I saw Wicked 20-something years ago, before it was ever on Broadway. My parents, I still told you, took me to the theater every weekend in San Francisco. I'm from the Bay Area. They had season tickets. They made sure all 5 kids would dress up in our little polo outfits, and we'd go there an hour early. We'd eat at the local whatever cafeteria, and we'd go in there. And I was in college at this point, so I had gone for a while. And my mom, I was in film school, so my mom called me and said, "There's a new musical by Stephen Schwartz, and it's based off of The Wizard of Oz." So I was like, great, I'm coming. So I came back. My mom that year before had just gone through chemo, so she had not been able to go out. So this was like it was a very special time to be together. And so we're watching it, and this show was so moving for me. Again, it was in a rough form, like it wasn't what it became. I was going through a time in college where I was letting go of my old friends from high school, people that were my best friends. And you have that question, are they, if I don't see them every day, are they still my friend? If I don't talk to them until, every 6 months, does it still count? And I'm looking back at how I was raised, and looking at how my family told me about the great American dream, and how beautiful it can be. And I'm in college, I'm like struggling, and I'm like, is this really real? Like all these things I was questioning, and this story hit it. The story was about reinvestigating the idea of your fairy tale when you're growing up. They're investigating your friendships and saying how hard or do they still have a value when they go away. And so that was really close to my heart. And then I was like, someone's gonna make a great movie this one day. I could already feel it. And so for years after that, even when I maybe had the opportunity, I would call them and say, are they making this movie yet? Because they kept having like release dates and they never made them. I was just a big fan, and they never called me back. So until COVID, and then everything changed. I got the first phone call about Wicked.
Well, we're gonna see this very special exclusive, but as a reminder, please don't try to record it.
Please don't record it.
It's just for you guys.
Because I had to beg Universal to let us show you guys this. It's behind the scenes stuff, but anyway, try not to let it out, please. Thank you. We're almost there. We're so close. Can't wait for you guys to see.
It's gonna be great. So you shot the movies simultaneous.
Yes.
And not in order. So what was most overwhelming about trying to do that this way?
The scheduling was very overwhelming because you want to help the girls by doing it in a certain type of order so they don't have to jump everywhere. But the reality is, when you're making a movie that's very expensive and very big, it takes time to build giant sets. You're in London, so weather changes over time. So when you're starting, you can't shoot outside, otherwise everyone will be freezing and cameras will freeze. And so you're like, okay, I can't do any of those scenes, any outdoor scenes until 6 months from now. Okay, so what leaves in it? And so, and then you have schedules, actor schedules and things like that people are popping in, like Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Yeoh. There's a lot of things. And then you're planting 9 million tulips, and those tulips blossom at a certain moment, and you have to make room, and you don't know what day they're gonna blossom, and you have about 48 hours to shoot them at their full color. Otherwise, why did you plant them in the first place? That's 9 million tulips. So there's a lot of factors, and we just started as small as we could, and that's when I had to tell Ariana, we're shooting Popular the first week of the shoots. And And she's like, what? I'm like, you're gonna kill it, don't worry. She's like, how do you know? I was like, we're gonna, but I think, so that was really hard to position. But the actual hardest part is, we have 9 months of prep before we shoot one thing, and you're prepping 2 movies. So, okay, there's one thing where you have, 10 numbers in one movie. You gotta do not just the concepts of what they are, the choreography, the temp music that you're going to rehearse to, what are you going to do for playback, the costumes, because you have to know what shoes, so then the production design has to know what kind of floors they can use, and what's the space that you're doing on the scene. You have to block it with your camera, and you have to rehearse the scene. You have to do every single scene and every single musical number for 2 movies, 20-something numbers, before you ever start shooting. That was daunting. That alone, I was bleeding from my eyes. And then when you start, you're like, all right, let's just go, whatever, let's see what happens.
Well, now that the first movie has come out, it's been a huge box office success, 10 Oscar nominations, 2 wins, so many other things, a huge hit. You can be honest with us, how much were you sweating before this movie?
I think I took this job and I was like, well, my career's gonna end, go back to wedding videos and bar mitzvahs, which I'm fine with, I love that. Or we're gonna do something extraordinary, and there was only one way to go. It was like, we gotta shoot the moon. It's at a time during COVID lockdown, so we were like, will movies even exist anymore? I don't know, this may be our last shot. Also, movie musicals were having a hard time. We gotta nail this. There's a huge responsibility. So I was more scared at the beginning of pre-production when we first got on this project, and I looked those girls in the eyes and I said, I don't know, I can't say I have all the answers, but we gotta do this. And we gotta ignore everybody else. They say at some point you have to turn away from the audience and face the orchestra and conduct. And that's what we agreed to do and not worry about it. So in that process of shooting for, a year and a half and then editing, I had already shut off the outside world, because, whether you doubted Ariana, or you doubted 2 movies, or you doubted this, or you doubted that, how could they have this song, that could really destroy your confidence. But we ignored it all and said, they just don't know yet. But when they find out, they're going to thank us for making these choices. So I feel free to finally be able to start.
The second half of the show is darker, as you're sort of referencing here, these 2 characters do have to grow up. What kind of tweaks did you feel like you had to make to make it work for a movie?
Well, I don't say darker, I say deeper.
Deeper.
And it's, it was interesting, movie 2, because people had certain feelings about Act 2, we didn't have to be as, I didn't have as many pinpoints to be like, we have to do that thing that they're waiting for. I mean, you have to do what it's feeling, you have to do popular, you have to do certain things. In movie 2, the leash was off, in a way. And so it was, in a weird way, it was about us saying, what do we want to know? What do we need to know? If movie 2 is in the future of them, and they're now adult people, what are we looking back at Wicked at? What are we looking at Wizard of Oz, these stories? What do I need to know? And a lot of that was within, once you make a choice in your life, and you think it's happily ever after, and then the next day happens, and you're like, oh, life keeps going. What are the consequences of that? And so we just looked at every character. Okay, Elphaba, you were so strong and standing up and going into the air and defying gravity. But that's a harder choice than just that one moment. You're alone. You're fighting for things that you think are right, but everyone's telling you you're wrong. Not even you're wrong, you're wicked. And they don't even want you there. You're defending a home that doesn't even have a place for you. Why? I think those questions are really hard when you feel so isolated in these decisions. And for Glinda, you let your friend go, and now you're complicit. And now you live in your bubble, and you don't have to actually engage at all because you have a great life. But how long can that last for you, if you know who you really are? At what point will you pop your bubble, if ever? And I think those questions were really profound, allowed us to say, we need new songs here, or new scenes here, and allowed us to say, the movie is about this moment. We can look back at all the moments in movie one and have similar framing and show it in a totally new way, or certain melodies to bring it in. So that really helped us. And then having them a year apart and having experienced the whole experience of movie one before getting into movie two again, because we cut both at the same time. I actually watched both movies 3 and a half years ago. And then I put movie two to the side, ignored it for a year and a half before getting back into it this January. And then things did change. Yeah, I mean, that whole experience has to change you in a way.
Can you talk a little bit about the new songs and your approach to those?
Those were moments where we knew that the characters, it felt like we had to have a scene or a song, and Schwartz was like, I know how to do that. I know that this is a song. And when Schwartz says that, you let him go. And he sends you a voice memo, which is great, with his like first version of it. And you're like, wow. I mean, with the brilliance of Stephen and Winnie is that they are great storytellers. They are of a different generation and have a different generation of what Wicked means to them, I think, than our movie version, although we ultimately do, but at first, when I was sort of working with them. But they're brilliant at their storytelling, and he knows the heart of Wicked better than anybody, and she knows the heart. So they could bring out what Elphaba was really feeling in words that I never could. So I just, we sort of followed that instinct on it. And Elphaba has one called No Place Like Home, which is a very provocative title in itself, but it felt very relevant to even now. And even though it was written now, like 3 years ago, maybe more than that. And then The Girl in the Bubble is for Ariana, for Glinda. And that was something that you just knew that in the movie I wanted to watch her turn. And what was that language of watching her turn? She had no one to talk to. So a song, of course, as she looks back on her life and what she has become is in question.
When you were editing this second part, was there a hard cut or change or something that kind of you really debated doing to finish the story?
In movie two? Oh, movie one now. Well, I can't say too much for you guys who haven't seen movie two yet. But there were a few moments that were difficult. I do think that the architecture is different. Because movie one has some sort of pretty predictable architecture on purpose, because it's working off of tropes. It's this idea that, hey, here's a fairy tale, and she's actually telling you the story. So she's gonna, hey, you come to school, you meet the new person hates each other. I mean, it's very much like we're playing off of the tropes of Hollywood, off of musicals and romantic comedies, and so you know what you're getting, and then it sort of cracks at defying gravity, where you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is gonna break. It can't handle this. This is all false. And then movie two, it's broken already from the very beginning. And so it's trying to piece that together. So movie two has inherently a structure that doesn't feel so predictable. And so how do you put that together so the audience still feels comfort, that they're being led with confidence, that hey, even though that's not what you expect to happen, don't worry, we still have your hand in this. I think in a musical, they have to have confidence in that hand, that guiding hand, even more so, because they're not willing to sit through a song if they don't know what you're trying to do with that song, even if it's a surprise as it goes. So I think that we have a lot of clarity, even though there's a lot of things happening, like really clear ideas of what we were trying to make the audience see or feel in every turn of every scene of movie two. Which movie one, we had a little bit of freedom to play around.
When you look back on Wicked, is there a character you sort of personally relate to that feels sort of closest to your heart?
I mean, I'd probably balk. I used to drive up to the studio lot, and they'd be like, deliveries are around the corner. Well, I have a pass. I think that going through this experience with Elphaba and Belinda was a healing experience for me, because I think for Cynthia and Ariana, and myself, I've always felt like the underdog. I've always felt like people doubt and don't believe that you can do what you aspire to do. I think they've never seen someone that looks like you to do this, or they just don't think like, oh, those are too big of a dream for someone like you. And so I always feel the need to prove myself, and I'm down. I'm like, that motivates me. I'm like, all right, you say you don't think so, let's go. That's my starting point. I'm like motivated by that. But I think by playing with Elphaba and Galinda, they are two sides of all of us. And Elphaba, I get to free her of proving herself to anybody in this movie. She surrenders to her own power, and proving herself doesn't matter anymore. And I think going through that experience with Cynthia and Ari, and us living that, I think was really beautiful and helpful for me. And same thing with Galinda, because I think more than Elphaba, we're actually, a lot of us are Galindas, where we just like to be safe and not try to extend ourselves to the place when we see injustices or truths that we have to correct. It's sort of, well, that's their issue, let me just keep going. And I think being able to guide Galinda through a journey, or Galinda through a journey, to release her of that and say we are all going through this life together, I think to me all of that was really, it was really helpful for me over the years, even with this movie as it does itself, to say I'm working on it, but I'm partially free of some of those things.
How have you changed as a director as you've sort of grown into this role and grown up?
I mean, being a director is a very weird job. I mean, I'm not sure if people even know what you're doing, but it's like, my parents definitely don't know what I do. They think I'm an actor. They see me at these things, and they're like, oh, see, we told you, you can always be on camera. That's not my place. But, repeat the question one more time. I got on 20.
How have you changed as a director?
Oh, as I changed.
As you've grown up.
As I grown up, yes. I think that I've learned to give, to trust process more than anything. I really value being a director because, unlike life, you get many tries at things very quickly, and lots are at stake. You have a vision in your head, so I see every frame and I draw it and I present it, but it's not up to you actually. There's so many other things that are factors. You have heads of departments that got to build the thing, so it has to be physically right, but also they have to buy into it too. You have actors who are going to say these lines that you think are right, but they aren't performing it the way you think. They have a different interpretation. So I've really learned to, and it's really hard at first when you're like, no, just say the joke the way it's written. And some directors make them say the joke, and they're great and they're brilliant, and I could never do that because maybe I don't have that thing. But what I love and I've enjoyed every bit of is learning to set the vision and then trusting people to find their way in, debating it out, and then finding something neither of us could have ever imagined being the thing. And then seeing an audience see that and say, wow, she winked in that scene, that was amazing. Or, oh my gosh, she touched her shoulder in that. And I was like, oh, that happened because we were circling the area and the movie gods gave us this moment and we listened to the movie. And I think as a director, it's hard because you don't get a lot of chances at it, but now that I have done it over and over, I have like field tested. It's like my, I call it like my failure dial has been really honed because you don't have to get it right. You can do something wrong and you can correct it, and then the next movie you can correct it a little more, and something will go wrong. So I've done that many times, and I feel very comfortable not knowing the answer and getting it wrong, and then knowing that I can. And so I think that's the thing I've learned most. Is like I can ride this crazy wild horse, and it doesn't have to be everything that I imagine it to be. If I put it in the right canvas, if I set it in the right thing, it's going to be even better.
You said in your speech that when you started out on the Wicked projects, there were moments that felt impossible. Can you talk specifically about a moment you remember that felt really impossible?
It felt impossible a lot of days. Finding the girls felt impossible. Seeing a lot of people, no names and big names, and they were all great. They were all so talented. but not the thing that made you like, I have to make this movie right now. So those were days where I would look at Mark Platt and he would look at me and he's like, we don't have to make this movie. And like, we're gonna find these people. I don't know where they are yet. And so it was such a relief when they came in. You're like, oh, bingo. There were days in Defying Gravity that I felt very daunting because the idea was, you do Defying Gravity, you have this great gift that's at the end of your movie. It's like, you never get that. But it couldn't just be a song. It had to be a sequence. If this were a one movie, then this had to be more than just a song. It had to be the pinnacle of the emotional arc of Elphaba in this. So we have to break up the song, and that was very scary and daunting because half the people would be like, you can't break the song like this. And I was like, I think we have to. And I think if we keep the motor on and we keep it vital that we're seeing the next step, and we can do it. But if we slip 1 inch, they're gonna eat us alive. And that moment where she runs out of, I remember pitching that, because we have the script and we have like where the musical numbers are, but I try to tell the writers to like just be broad about the musical numbers, because you cannot imagine what it is. Like I need to know the space, I need to know where we're at, and then I can imagine what we're gonna do. And so, and then like a few weeks into pre-production, I go through each musical number and I sit with our heads of departments and I walk them through. I'm like, now this line, this thing happens, on this line, this thing happens, then there's a break of a thing, and so then they're hearing it for the first time so they can budget and do all their stuff. Defying Gravity, I pitched it, and I remember after feeling a little bit like it wasn't quite working. And when she says, it's me, and she flies, I'm like, she doesn't earn that flight. So I went home that night, maybe a few nights, and then it hit me like, well, one of my line producers suggested like, if she doesn't earn, why does she know she can fly? How does she know? Why is she doing this for herself? Isn't this just a reaction? And when those notes come in, you can get really frustrated. Like, why are you asking so many questions? That's just the way the song is. Just build like that. People love it. It's fine. But then when you're actually doing the work, and you're actually thinking about her journey, you're like, you're right. Like, she can't just do it. So then we're like, what if she goes out the window and she falls? And you're like, another break in the song. You're like, yes, but fall, and this is, she doesn't know why she's jumping out that window, and she falls, and this is where she gets her purpose. It's not to fight the wizard, it's for herself, it's for her younger self, to protect that girl. And she falls, and she sees it, she hears all the things in her life, and then she sees her younger self, and her younger friend reaches out to her. Not, is she asking for help? Is she saying, let's play? Is she encouraging? Who knows what it is, but they see each other, and to grab her hand, instead of the hand, it'll be a broomstick, and that's when she knows, and that's when she says, it's me. I'm the reason I'm gonna fly. And that's why we earn Defying Gravity at the end of this. That's why she can look at the wizard and say, no one in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down. It's the only way she can do it. And if you don't respect the music, and if you don't respect the power of music, and if you think it's just words and lyrics in a song, then you don't actually ever find that. And so I think those were really hard moments because we had to test each other if it was worth it. But that's one of the moments that was very scary. All the way to the mix, because they're like, oh, I hope people will hang with us here, or they're gonna be very mad at the end of this movie.
We're almost out of time, but I want to know how you're going to feel when this Wicked for Good finally comes out, November 21st. You've been working on this movie for how many years?
I've been on this for over 5 years.
Okay.
I've had 3 children during it.
Yes.
3 different women. Not just kidding. My wife hates that joke. But she's not here today. No one's recording this, right? Except for you. I know, 3 kids, really. When I started this movie, we named her Ruby, and then found out, you can't use Ruby slippers in the movie, it's fine. And then movie 2, so while we were shooting, Iggy was born, who's now 2, and then on our premiere day, little Stevie Sky was born, so I missed my premiere last year. So I have 5 in total now, and it's the best. It's the best. It's been a lot of, but yes, it's an era for our whole family.
So how do you feel when this movie comes out and it's really done?
I don't know, I'm still, I haven't processed it yet. Is this my therapy session for it? I think the end of this movie is about the possibilities of the unknown. It's about embracing how beautiful that can be. It's not a separation. It is the beginning of the new chapter. And so I'm trusting that that's what this will lead to. And but either way, this has been an amazing journey to have all the people who love Wicked, who know nothing about Wicked, who know Wizard of Oz and know nothing, to have everybody be part of the same family. It's been the best I could ever dream of. I never thought I could do a movie at this scale and scope and have the whole world waiting to see the next one. That's like the dream.
Well, I think we're all very grateful that Wicked landed in your hands and you've done such a wonderful, caring job with it. Let's give Jon another